Hi, everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and we are live on a Sunday afternoon. And I know that some of you might have forgotten to put your clocks forward or back, rather back. But, that's why we do broadcasts, right? Is so that you can remember before it becomes too embarrassing for you. Right. So welcome. Who's here? Jeannie's here. Hi, Jeannie. Good to see you. And also Jody, good to see you as well. And for those of you who don't know, Jody is our admin on Dear Mama Sal, and she does a wonderful job of looking after me and the viewers. So this is awesome. Jeannie's asking me if I've had time to be to the post office recently. No, but it is on my list to do this week. I actually was going to be doing it Thursday, but life got in the way of that, and I ended up not being able to go. So actually, I lie. I was going to go yesterday, but stuff happened yesterday. I didn't mean to lie on that one. All right, so welcome to everybody. And today we're going to be talking a little bit more about how to cope with stress and also to have a few laughs. I decided that, it's like this week is going to be very stressful for a lot of people. And I just wanted to make sure that we don't ignore it, that we address it, and that we make sure that we are prepared for some of the things that could happen to us. Because, as you know, when we are prepared for things, we find them less stressful. And I'm going to be talking a lot about what's happened to me this week in terms of being prepared or not prepared and what the difference was. For those of you who don't know, Dear Mama Sal is a group of people. It's not just me. It's a group of people who get together 3 times a week. And the times I'm going to give you are Pacific times. We meet at lunchtime, Pacific time on Fridays, where we talk about coping with feelings. Boy, I've had a lot of those this week. And then on Friday evenings, we talk about coping with life. And then here on Sunday afternoons, we talk about coping with stress to get ourselves calmed down and ready for the oncoming week. And it's all about helping you and maybe even those that you know cope better. None of us has to be perfect. We're just all working to improve. If you have a topic about which you'd like me to speak, please contact me at dearmamasal@gmail.com, and I will add it to our list or try and incorporate it in some way in an upcoming broadcast. If you follow us here, subscribe here and click the bell will make sure that you get any, if I'm about to do a broadcast, it will drop it immediately into your inbox. Did everybody get an inbox notification today? And so that's a good way to do it. And also, if I do an extra one for any reason, you will be notified. And if you click on the bell, that's how you do that. It's going to ask you, do you want all notifications? And I would recommend yes on that, just so that you get everything that we don't put very many things out on there, just so you know, I'm not going to be crowding your inbox with things. I hate that myself, so I'm not going to do it to somebody else. So on a Sunday, we talk about the coping mechanism of being a human being rather than a human doing. Because a lot of our society pushes us to be a human doing rather than a human being. And as you will hear, a lot of what we talk about is how to take some of that do stress and just bring it down a little bit. We also do what we can to let go of our perfectionism and our self-imposed deadlines and any other stress that we might be having. But, stress is part of our life. And it's, quite honestly, a good part of our life. And in this day and age, a big part of our life. And so we can't live in a life and say, oh, I don't want any stress, because that's not realistic. Interesting. Jody's saying my YouTube notifications are typically 20 minutes late with most of my subscriptions. Okay, but better late than never. So is that no, you didn't get a notification? I sort of allowed for that, which is why I send it out early. But interesting to know that. Thank you. How about this I thought this was an interesting quote. It said, if you are depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. And if you are at peace, you are living in the present. And I think that is a quote that we need to remind ourselves of every day. All right? If you are at all anxious, you're living in the future. You're worried about what might happen in the future. If you are depressed, you are replaying your past. And quite honestly, we can't change the past. It is what it is. And we have no real idea whether we'll ever see the future. Think about that. So it's like, if you can learn to live in the present, it's amazing how it changes your life. And coping with stress is all about taking time for you, right? You control your mind and you control how much stress you take on and how much you want to put into any one day. As some of you know, I work really hard to tackle one task a day. If I have room for a second one, that's great. But one task I really concentrate on so that I can take major steps forward. And I'll be talking a bit about that in a second. Coping means, and I repeat this every week because it's important for you to understand it. Coping means to invest one's own conscious effort to solve personal and interpersonal problems in order to try and master, minimize, or tolerate stress and conflict. Yes, Jeannie, I am aware why you want me to go to the post office, honey. It's not on you. Please don't see it as disrespectful. I just have so many things going on this week that getting to the post office didn't get to the top of my list. I will talk a bit about how I've freed up some of my stress this week, and hopefully that will be able to be something I can do. So think for a moment, if you will. What gift of me time will you give yourself this week? All right. So this is something that you make a decision every day whether to give yourself some me time. And I know some of you, it's like the only me time I get is when I go to the washroom. What I want you to really be aware of is that if the world controls you, then it is time for you to start controlling your world. And so we have the ability, because we only have so many hours in a day, we have the ability to decide what we're going to put into those hours, right? Now, some things we've got appointments for and we need to be there at a certain time. But for the rest of the day, you can decide what time you're going to cook. You can decide what time you're going to do this or the other thing. And so when you realize these are all choices that we make, it's important. Now, I needed to let go of some stress today. And the first stress that I was aware of is that I normally go out to dinner on a Sunday evening. As you know, I go and have Chinese dinner with some friends. And I decided I was going to not go this week. Hi, Sandy, good to see you. I decided I was not going to go this week. And why? I want some more me time. It's been a very busy week for me, and I just need to not have to get out and about. I just want to take some time for me. I had a strenuous day yesterday, both physically and mentally, and I will talk about that in a second. And I could feel it in my body. And I decided, something? I really just want to have some me time today. I'm going to be doing the broadcast, but after that, I want to be able to just quietly enjoy some time for me. By the way, if you are watching in the background, and I know a lot of people do that, welcome. And if you're watching on the replay, welcome. Feel free to participate either by joining the chat on the live or leaving us a comment on the replay. I really work hard to get to all the comments that I can, and I think you all know that. It's something over the years I've always taken that as a high priority. And I might not, if I miss one, you must know that I probably didn't see it. And so feel free to write again, and the chance that maybe I'll pick it up on the second time. And by the way, some people have watched for years without participating, and that's also fine. I have no problem with that at all. The main thing is know that this group of people are here to support you with whatever it is that you are dealing with at the moment. So if you've got any stress going on in your life at the moment, feel free to let us know so that we can support you in that. Under the heading of be prepared, not scared, I have to say that we all are aware that the US elections are happening this week on Tuesday. And I am pretty sure that that's going to cause a lot of stress for a lot of people, for a lot of good reasons. And I'd like to also acknowledge the fact that the elections are also going to bring out the crazies. So be prepared for that. And do what you can to understand that the crazies are not the whole of the US. They are just a small group of people. And be prepared to stay safe. If you don't have to go and vote personally because you've already voted ahead of time, you were prepared. And you have no need to be scared because you can just stay away from all the crazies for the next couple of days. and I would say, well done. For those of you who were not able to vote ahead of time, do what you can to be safe. I would recommend, if you can, find a buddy to vote with. The reason I say that is it takes some of the stress off if you've got somebody with you, whether it's just somebody you can talk to. But I found that, voting with somebody always is far less stressful than voting on your own. And do any of you have any specific fears? Have any of you not voted yet? And if you've got any specific fears about that, feel free to let me know and we will chat about it. While I'm waiting for that response, Betty White said, people say to me, but Betty, Facebook is a great place to connect with old friends. And Betty White replied, at my age, if I want to connect with old friends, I need a Ouija board. I just thought that was delightful. That's somebody dealing with reality, I think. Again, going back to the elections this week, it's going to be really important for us to cope with the stress that will go on in our minds. And I say that because it sometimes gets difficult for us to remember that everybody has a right to their opinion. So regardless of who you vote for, what I'm going to ask you to just remember is that because everybody's entitled to their opinion, it doesn't make them stupid. It doesn't make them ill-informed. It makes them have that opinion with the information that they have. All right? The best information that they have is where they will make their decision. And so it's too late to worry about it now, all right? If they have got this far and want to make this decision, it is their right. So whether they vote your way or not doesn't matter. It is their right to have their opinion. Jody's saying, interesting that our ballots were sent out last Wednesday with an expectation to receive them by Thursday or Friday at the latest. Wondering if they were hijacked. We don't know. And don't even worry about it because it is what it is. Move on. All right, Jody? We can play this game, and I'm certain a lot of people will. It is too late to worry about it. So the number one thing I would ask you all to do during the next few days is to be civil. And being civil is what basically means that be polite. All right. Let me give you an example. Being civil is when you meet somebody you really don't like and you do bother to say, hi, how are you? That is being civil. You don't add the words, you little rotten so-and-so, right? You just go, hi, how are you? You don't lie. You don't say, you're my new best friend, whatever. You just say, hi, how are you? Yes, Jodie's saying, because of the ballots coming so late, Lionel will be able to vote, but she won't be able to. So, Jodie, I don't know when you asked for mail-in ballots or whatever, but you will know next time you need to do it a lot earlier. Or I'm pretty sure that you did it early, and therefore who knows what the lateness of it is. But here's the other thing. I can tell you one thing, Jodie. If you do want to vote, you just need to let them know you want to vote, and they will bring a suitable car to take you to vote. I can assure you of that. Your vote is so important to them. All right? I would definitely phone your local office, whatever it is, and I'm pretty sure that it will tell you where you need to vote, and tell them you need a wheelchair accessible vehicle to take you to vote. They will let you vote. They will make sure you can vote. So I don't want you to say that because it's late you can't vote. Yes, Jodie. You know me better than that. I'm not going to let you stop at an excuse, because I know how important this vote is to you. All right. So this week, whatever the outcome, people, will you remember to be civil, to be polite, regardless of whether it went your way or not. And I will do the same as best I can. And I am certain I'll have an opinion, but that's all that it is. It doesn't make me right. I will, undoubtedly voice an opinion here and there. It doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. I just have an opinion, and I'm allowed to have that. And just because my opinion might not agree with yours, we can still be friends if we have emotional intelligence. But if you only want to talk to people that agree with you all the time, then that can be difficult. Jeannie's saying, stress, my fairly new phone has never worked well. Now I cannot make a call or receive any. I must get a new phone. But I'm coping all right. I've decided to work on it on Monday. Yes, Jeannie, if you've got a new phone that doesn't work, tell the people who manufactured it, or tell the people from whom you got it, and say to them, I need a new phone that works, people. This one doesn't. And by the way, don't get into a big harangue about it. Just whatever they say to you, you go, yeah, I understand that, but I need a new phone that works. Yeah, be a broken record. Whatever they say, yes, I know, but I need a new phone that works. So could I have one, please? It's amazing how being a broken record takes away so much stress. It's all you want. I'm not asking for my money back. I just need a phone that works. I don't care if it's not the same one. I just need a phone that works. Yeah. Jodie's saying, I didn't know that there were accommodations being made. They always are, Jodie. I have been part of, in the Canadian elections, people are phoning all day on election day, asking people, do you need help to get out to vote? Right? And your answer is yes, but I'm in a wheelchair. Is there any way? Now, they might not be able to give you a wheelchair-friendly car, but what about your friend that lends you a car every now and then? Does he know that you need to get out to vote? Because he or she, because if that person knows you don't have the ability to go out and vote because you don't have transport, I'm pretty certain they're going to say, come get the car. This is an important election. All right, now then, if any of you want a lesson in civility, how to be polite, I really am delighted to say that, for those of you who've got Netflix, uh, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is on Netflix now. And here's the thing. If it is the greatest lesson in civility that I have ever seen. And I want to tell you that just watch it with a notepad beside you. And every time you hear a great answer to what, you probably would have been quite snippy about, just stop the tape and write it down. Because I want to tell you something. The whole movie was so full of those lessons that it was amazing. But the one that I really loved, the one that I walked away and said it was well worth watching the movie just to hear that one line, was when Tom Hanks, as Mr. Rogers, was listening to somebody tell him something about which he did not agree. And he smiled and said, wow, that's an interesting perspective. Not you silly, what do you know? But wow, that's an interesting perspective. He didn't say he agreed with them. He didn't say they were stupid. He didn't say any of that. It was just like, wow, that is an interesting perspective. Everybody ended up happy. It is the ultimate, in my mind, civil answer to something about which you do not agree. Now, here's a great quote, if I can just get this so I can read it. Children today are tyrants. They contradict their parents, they gobble their food, and they tyrannize their teachers. That was said by Socrates in about 400 BC. So if you agree with that in today's world, it's nothing new. It is nothing new, right? It just is what it is. All right. Oops. And Jeannie's saying we're voting on voting day. I think that's, wonderful. I would take a packed lunch with you, Jeannie, and I'm being very serious. I would take water with me and food because the lines might be very long. Now, if you're lucky, then they will not be too bad. But just in case they are very long, I would definitely take, especially if you've got, any thing like diabetes or something where you need to keep your blood sugar up. The other thing is if you have any way of taking something with you where you can sit down, a folding chair or something, I'd probably take that as well in case. And you will know when you drive up whether you're going to need the folding chair or not. If you drive up to where the voting place is and, there are just a few people there, you won't need a chair, but at least you're prepared to have it with you in case you do. So I found that I really reduced my money stress this month. For those of you who don't know, my house caught fire about a month ago, and I am living in a rented apartment, very pretty rented apartment, and that means that my whole life is upside down. I'm living with minimal stuff with me, and very grateful to have a roof over my head and all that sort of stuff. But here is the thing. Part of what I am missing is my usual routine where I order things on Amazon and Wish. And so what I've discovered is a month away from Amazon and Wish is a great way to cope with limited funds. How many of you are smiling? It was just like, wow, I saved myself quite a bit of money this month just by not being at home. And I always think about Lauren when I think about that, because when she was trying to adjust her budget, One of the things that she did that I thought was so smart is she stopped any notifications coming to her from either Amazon or Wish. So she wasn't tempted to buy stuff. I thought that was really clever. Now then, some of you know that part of my stress this week was the issue about my shed. And for those of you who don't know, the day after the fire, the community in which I live, hi there, Lauren, the community in which I live asked me to remove one of my 2 sheds. Now, I got pretty bent out of shape on that one because part of the reason I bought the place was because it had 2 sheds and that was a lot of storage space. But I decided I was going to let that go and let one of the sheds go. And what I did is I contacted my neighbors and let them know that if anybody could help me on Saturday, which was yesterday, I would be most appreciative. And I also was prepared that nobody would come. Even though I asked 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people. I sent a mass email out to nine, people, be that couples or singles, whatever, but it ended up being 9 people. And I was hopeful that somebody would come, but not expecting anybody to come. I wanted to be pleasantly surprised if somebody did, rather than horribly disappointed when nobody did. Does that make sense? And the funny thing is that the people I expected to be there were not, but the couple that did arrive were the best couple to help me on that day. You see why? They were really motivated to help me, and they did a great job of doing what needed to be done. And we, in about 2.5 hours, totally cleared the shed and quite honestly tidied up a lot of the surrounding area as well. I was really happy with what we managed to accomplish. And now my carport is a mess because I have got things that need to go to the garbage and I have so forth. And if anybody complains about that, they're just going to have to whistle Dixie for a while because I need to organize to get it removed now. So the main thing is the big issue, emptying the shed, is done. Now I need the people who are buying it to pay the money and remove the shed, which is this week's task. You understand? I do things one step at a time. I've got the people lined up to buy it. Now, they obviously couldn't remove it while it was full, so my number 1 step was to remove the stuff. Now they can dismantle it or take it out as it is. Now, I thought it was really quite cute because when I was there yesterday just closing up the house and everything, I met a guy called Mark, and he had come to the property. He decided that he's one of the people that will be, I think he's quoting on the roof. And it was great to meet him because I got to say to him, have they asked you to quote on redoing the whole roof, or are you just doing part of it? And he said, well, I've had a look at it and it looks to me like it needs the whole roof done, doesn't it? And I said, I totally agree. And it was just like the way he said it made me laugh. But, the other thing I did, he was a charming man, by the way. The other thing that he did was he was busy, looking at it all and making sure he understood it. He knew the dimensions because he'd seen similar places. But I said to him, while I'm here, is there any decision I need to make to help you? And he went, what? And I said, well, you need to know what color I want the roof to be. And he said, that's a good point. Yes, I do need to know that. And I said, well, what were you thinking? Because it's always nice if you're trying to interject with somebody. It's always nice to ask their opinion. You don't have to agree. He said, well, I know it's brown at the moment, but with the color of the house, I think black would look great. It's a yellow house. So all the siding is sunshine yellow. And so I said, that's funny you should say that, because I was thinking black or charcoal gray would look really good with it. So I said, make your best choice. It's up to you, depending on what you think will look better. You've got my okay on either black or charcoal gray. One less decision that I need to make. Do you understand how this is a decision above? I'm trying to get ahead of the decision making. Because you know how many decisions I'm going to need to make in a hurry in the coming months. All right, Jeannie's saying, we are being civil with our daughters. We refuse nicely to engage in political matters. Yes. Now, if they can't discuss it civilly, why would you? Yes, I quite agree, Jeannie. And, if we all understand that, we all have, opinions, and, who's right and who's wrong is really dependent on where you sit. And you thanked your daughter for her opinion. Awesome, right? I've always said, isn't it funny? The difference between terrorists and freedom fighters depends on which side of the fence you sit. Isn't that true? So I looked at the meeting, this guy, Mark, the roofer. I looked at it and thought, well, it was interesting because he made me laugh. He was very funny, and he was charming and very funny. And by the way, I've noticed that all the people that I've met that are contracted to the restoration people have all been really nice human beings. None of them have I felt uncomfortable with, or none of them were anything but just charming to talk to. Anyway, so Mark and I ended up chit-chatting about a lot of things. And one of the things was his diet. That came up for some reason. And I gave him the little thing about, by the way, Mark, if you want to know, have you got healthy food in front of you? Just ask yourself, how many colors are there? And what is the predominant color? And I said, that's what somebody taught me. And I want to tell you, it really works. If your predominant color is white because you've got too many potatoes or too much pasta, or too much rice, or too much white bread, or whatever it is, I said, you will know it's not the healthiest meal. But if the predominant coloring is multicolored, I've got greens and reds and yellows and oranges, orange colors, if you've got all those colors going, the chances are you've got a fairly healthy meal. He said, that's so easy. And I said, yeah, that's what I do every day. I look at my meal, and even if I've got a predominantly white meal in front of me, I go, I now need to stock up on the colors after this meal. In other words, some days I will have a pasta, for example, but I will do, instead of just having a plate of pasta, I will do half a plate of pasta and the other half is all vegetables. Why? And then before I eat it, I mix it all up. Because then I know it is much healthier than it would have been. So I actually found that my day was made brighter by meeting somebody. And by the way, if I hadn't left the house, I wouldn't have met Mark and I wouldn't have had that chance. So remember that whenever you're dealing with chaos, and we will deal with it. Anybody dealing with chaos today? We always have a choice whether to ignore it or to deal with it. And if we choose to deal with it, we do not have to deal with it all. I'm pretty sure that all of you have noticed that I really have these little boxes that I put things in. This is my box for the shed. And this is what I intend to do about the shed today. When it's done, no more shed stuff. This is what I intend to do about where I live. And this is what I intend to do about it today. When that is done, done. And I literally compartmentalize all these things because if I don't, it is totally overwhelming. How many of you coped with some feelings in the last 24 hours when you heard that Sean Connery had passed? I found some stress about that, to be honest. And the reason is because, and I don't mind telling you this, that I can remember watching his first movie, Dr. No, when I was a teenager. And it made me realize that I'm getting old, right? And then I thought that I am so glad that I got to see the original movie in a theater when it was released. And to me, it's like I can remember sitting in that movie theater with my mother. Funny enough, it's the only time I can remember my mother taking me to the movies. It's the only time in my life I can remember my mother taking me to the movies. Interesting, huh? Jeannie's saying, less stress. I found out that the big Scarborough group has a Thanksgiving meal. It is the 5th year this year to go. Free. We signed up for 2 meals and sent a check to the main group putting on the meal. Isn't that lovely? So you've decided not to cook a Thanksgiving meal, but to go out and share it. Isn't that wonderful? I think that's wonderful that you do that. They're making turkey, mashed potato, green bean casserole, rolls and butter, cranberry sauce, 2 kinds of pie. Yeah, and no dishes. So again, I wanted to say that it was interesting to me because I wrote to somebody about the fact that Sean Connery had died. And then that person wrote back to me and said, yeah, but I hear he was pretty much a curmudgeon, not a happy person towards the end. And I remember thinking to myself, I think a lot of people are like that. And then I think I wrote back and said, yes, he probably wasn't alone in that. And I didn't say, and the chances are you're probably going to be pretty crabby towards the end as well. Because it is what I thought. I held back on that one. I was more civil. But it's like, isn't it sad that they didn't acknowledge all that he had achieved? They just remembered him for being a bit crabby towards the end. Well, this morning I read, and I don't know if any of you did, that apparently he was suffering from dementia. And by the time he passed, he actually couldn't communicate anymore, I believe. And how sad. But, it's like, let's remember the good. It's a really important thing, isn't it? I want to talk a little bit about the stress of coping with fear. And I just want to preface this by letting you know I do have Lauren's permission to discuss this with you. And she, as you know, has had 2 different ultrasounds in 2 weeks. The first one was for a lump, which luckily turned out to be a bruise and nothing more serious than that. And the second one was on her shoulders, which were causing her some problem. And unfortunately, she was not quite as lucky with the second one. And they told her that she has bursitis, I think that's, but they did say that will go away with treatment. But she also has arthritis of the shoulders. And that will get progressively worse. Now, I need you to remember a few things. Number 1, Lauren is just 32. Oh, Lauren's saying bursitis is frozen shoulder. Okay, so Lauren is just 32. She's not my age. She's 32 with this diagnosis. And if that doesn't sink in pretty hard, then also remember another thing. Lauren is wheelchair bound, which means that the way she moves is by carrying her weight on her shoulders. You understand? If she wants to turn over, she doesn't have the use of her legs. She only can use her arms, and therefore that all connects to her shoulders. If she wants to get off her bed, she has to carry her full weight with her shoulders. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was busy getting dressed this morning, for some reason I was thinking about that, and all I could think about was, ouch. So, do you think that it is a pretty scary diagnosis for Lauren? And do you think that with that diagnosis, her life as she knew it has changed already? Again. Now, Lauren knows me better than most. And what I said to her is, I'd like to ask you a difficult question. And she just said, go ahead, shoot. And I said, how do you feel? How do you feel? And she gave me the answer, terrified. And I think that is totally normal. What about you guys? If you knew that the way that you are mobile is by the use of carrying your weight with your shoulders, wouldn't you be terrified if you found out your shoulders are about to get progressively more and more painful? And so when she gave me that answer, I thanked her for her honesty, because how many people would not have given me that honest answer? How many people would have said, oh no, I'll be fine or whatever? I just thought it was such an honest answer. And also, it helps us support her better. Because when we know that she is still in that place of being terrified, and will be for some time, I'm sure. Why? Because of the cycle of loss. And we know that, the cycle of loss needs to, whenever we get something that shifts our reality, we need to go through that cycle of loss. And so, well done, Lauren. I'm so proud of you for actually telling the truth on that. As difficult as that might have been, a lot of people would have just, poo-pooed it and pretended they weren't that terrified. But I would have been terrified too. I would have probably been there for a little while. I don't know how long. As we all know, it's not that we have feelings that is the problem. It's how long we stay in the negative ones that affects our life. Lauren says, you know me too well for me not to tell you the truth. I take that as a huge compliment. Thank you so much, Lauren. And it was difficult for me to even ask the questions, but you know me well enough to know that I genuinely needed to know the answers, very selfishly, which is why I would have been quite fine if you didn't want to tell me, or even quite fine if you didn't want me to talk about it with the viewers. But you see, Lauren, I think so many people need to know that it's okay to be terrified. When the fire happened, was I terrified? Yes, but not for very long. Because the longer I was terrified, the less time I had to deal with the fire. There was time to be terrified later. And funny enough, by the time later came, I couldn't be bothered to be terrified. It wasn't going to help me. And so I'd like to say that this coming week is going to be a week of change. I think it's going to be a big week of change, don't you? I'd like to suggest that for America, it is going to be a big week of change, whichever way it goes. For Lauren, it's already a big week of change. For everybody, it's going to be a week of change. And change is stressful. So let's talk about, do you think it would be quite natural for Lauren to have got a bit angry about the fact that that's what's happening to her shoulders? And even if she'd said, that's not fair, I need my shoulders, that would be perfectly normal to have that momentary bit of anger. But, I know Lauren well enough that she's going to go, yeah, right, that's not helping me at all, because anger is not going to change anything. I'm still going to have arthritic shoulders. So what can I spend my time on? Maybe with Jodie's help, knowing Jodie, she's already doing it for her, but is to get her the information she needs on how to, keep those joints going as best they can. I have to tell you something, Lauren. You know that I got that diagnosis on my hip, that I had a slight arthritis of the hip. And since I've been taking the stairs and doing all the things that I've been doing and playing the Wii thing, quite honestly, I have minimized the pain in my hip, and the use of my legs are much better. Even so, Lauren, just so that you know, when I, Betty Ann's Wii machine actually lets you know how much weight you're carrying on each foot. And I stood there and it said that I was carrying equal weight on both feet. That surprised me. I thought because of the arthritis, I would be favoring my right side, and apparently I wasn't. Yay. So again, I have arthritis too, Lauren. And sure, I take some Tylenol for arthritis every day. But, it's like we can do the best we can, and we need to do what we can to keep those muscles working or those joints as lubricated as we can. And I know that with you, we're going to do lots of research, and I am certain I'm going to learn a lot. And you know me well enough that whatever we learn, I will share. Jodie is saying both my shoulders are bone-on-bone arthritis. So I understand processing those feelings. There are ways to reduce the inflammation and strengthen. Yes, Jodie. And that's why I am so grateful for so many reasons that we know you, because you suffer with so many things, and yet you live such an incredibly positive life. And I think you're a role model for a lot of us, Jodie. So do you think, in terms of the stress, do you think that Lauren, had feelings of being pretty frustrated as well? But the thing is, does frustration help us get better? No. Frustration is just self-serving, really. Lauren has already worked out that she said my weight definitely needs to decrease. Why? Because the less she weighs, the less strain on her shoulders. Way to go, Lauren. And I know that you will do what is necessary. And Jodie's saying having the support from DearMamaSal people, right, helps me stay positive. There's no doubt about that. Well, that's the whole thing. I think our support of one another is so important, right? It's like we're not doing it alone. I know whenever I get a bit of pain in this joint here, this is also an arthritic joint. But whenever I feel pain there, I can hear, did you take anything for that? And I'm going, no, it's not that bad yet. If I can get away with only taking one painkiller, that's fine. I don't want to be loading up, but if it gets too bad, I go and take another one. Yeah, and Jodie's saying, we're here for you, Lauren. You've helped us and encouraged us all. Exactly. And this is what happens. We're going through life. And for some people, it's emotional pain. For other people, it is physical pain. And for some of us, it's fire. Like Jeannie went to her whole house burned down, for goodness sake. In mine, only a third of it was affected. But, it's like we deal with life. And I'd like you to think about this. Regardless of what happens on the election results, will a new president mean less virus? I don't think so in the short term at all. And will a sitting president being re-elected put you into the hamster wheel of emotion? I hope not. I hope you can control yourself enough to go, no, I'm not going to let this affect my mood. It is what it is. Okay? And so what I like to say is that I know that I've got viewers on both sides of that aisle. And I know that some of us, I'm not even in America, but I know that this election will affect the world. And to me, it's like, what are you going to do to control your mind during the next week? It'll be really important. Jody is talking about the reality of the pain. And she's saying, I can relate that anxiety creeps in at night because you're quiet and your mind isn't as distracted with tasks as it is during the daytime. So Jody, let me ask you, because it's important to a lot of people, when you start to feel the pain at night and then the anxiety at night, what actions do you take that help distract your mind from concentrating on the pain? And while Jody's answering, I want to tell you that for me, I found certain things work really well for me. I find that listening to the news pretty low so that I can really hardly hear it works really well for sending me to sleep. I found that sometimes I watch something like Forensic Files, which I find interesting, but I put it down again very low because that guy's voice that does the narration of that is pretty monotone. And I find if I just put it on and close my eyes, that monotone sends me to sleep almost immediately. So it's like I found certain things that will send me to sleep. I know a lot of people say that my voice will send them to sleep as well. All right, isn't that interesting? So Jeannie's saying, even if you're not able to fully heal, I pray your strength will increase to help you, dear Lauren. Yeah, and I'm pretty certain that Lauren will do what she needs to do to keep, as much mobility as she can. And by the way, worst case scenario, Lauren, I'm sure you've been there in your mind. All right? I am sure you have been there in your mind. The worst case scenario is what? That you will need a lift to get in and out of bed? Or that you will need help getting in and out of bed? And if so, think about Erin, who has lived a lifetime of needing that, a lifetime of it. And so, yes, you could need 24-hour help. And how will you get that? You see, I think your mind would be best used towards, I'm going to do everything I can not to need 24-hour help, but I want to make sure I'm prepared for when I do, because it could be coming sooner rather than later, right? And it's just like, if you already know what the plan is, if you already know how to do that, then it will be just the next step. It won't be a horrible shock to you. And I think you can cope. am more concerned about how does that pain affect your ability to do your crafts, because I know doing crafts is a really important thing to you. So I'd be more worried about that for some reason. All right, I also want you to think about this in terms of what's going to happen with the election. Do you all agree that whatever the result, it's not a mistake? And yes, we're going to have lots of conspiracy theories. Okay? We're going to have lots of people saying, ballots were thrown in the river or chucked into the garbage cans or da-da-da. We're going to have lots of stuff going on like that. But the truth is, whatever the result is, it will have been the will of the people. And that is what we need to concentrate on. It is the will of the people. And that, to my mind, is the most important thing to keep in your mind. I don't need to get all bent out of shape. It is what it is, and whatever comes down the pike, I'm going to need to deal with anyway. Jeannie's saying, I live with Crohn's disease, and she's had it since she was 19. I had a big problem in my 30s. I just keep doing the best I can. Absolutely, Jeannie, right? Another friend of mine has Crohn's as well. And, I try and make sure that we, eat in places where I know it's not going to cause her a problem. I don't mind about eating in places that I normally wouldn't want to, because I know it suits her better than it suits me. Do you understand? It's just like, it's part of what being a friend is. And so I want you to think about this whole thing about there are going to be no mistakes. It is what it is. And it is really important that you keep your mind on the fact that this is what democracy is. Be thankful we live in a democracy. And sometimes it doesn't go your way, but still be grateful that you live in a country where you do get to have a vote and that the vote counts. Yeah, Lauren's saying, so what you were saying that I'd missed the most because I do love it. Yes, that's where my mind went, Lauren, which is it affecting your ability to do crafts at the moment? Is it, because most of the crafts, I think most of the action, there is some action in the shoulders, but most of it is, from the elbow through, right? Most of crafting, you're doing this rather than, lots of shoulders. So there's part of me that goes, I am pretty certain, I know how resourceful you are, Lauren. I've known you a long time now. And I'm going, I know that you will be arranging your room so that you can get to your crafts. And I would urge you to keep thinking to yourself, okay, if I couldn't get out of bed, how would I still do crafts? What would I need? I'd need tables on wheels that could come right over so that I could just sit up and do my crafts. Maybe I need stacking things on beside my bed that I can put my scrap papers and stuff. Am I making sense, Lauren? I would start using your creativity to what if. Yeah, and she's saying that cortisone injections will be my new best friend. And, they're not fun. I want to tell you, they're not fun. I've had one in my joint of my thumb. And quite honestly, I actually tolerate the pain in my thumb rather than have another one. It's a choice that I make, right? I think that coping with forgiveness is really important, right? And that all the time, Lauren, forgive yourself if you're on the hamster wheel a bit, right? Do what you can to get off the hamster wheel. But, if you're spinning on the hamster wheel for a while, remember to let us know so we can help you. The other thing is remember that beating up on yourself isn't a good thing either. All right. And Lauren's saying, I'm not looking forward to it. I have a fear of needles. Okay, so you know not to look. All right. And literally, if you have a fear of needles, don't look. Let them do whatever. I would almost take a paper bag with me and stick it over my head if I had a fear of needles. But quite honestly, as you know, I literally had them operate on my back. And I stood up and chatted to the doctor when he did it. Because to me, I was going, if they inject me properly, I'm not going to feel this anyway, so I don't need to be scared. And the funny thing was that when he did the little operation on my back, he was removing something he didn't like the look of. But, it was so funny because at one point I said, I think I can feel liquid. I didn't say blood, but I think I can feel liquid running down my back. And he said, oh, yeah, you're right. So it was just like Lauren, how we deal with this is going to affect our ability, all right? So no, I don't think it's going to be a fun experience in a lot of ways, but I know you well enough to know that you will do your best, and that's all that we can hope for. And you've got such a great role model in Jody, who's dealing with this for so long. And you, in turn, Lauren, are going to help and motivate so many other people and inspire so many people, as Jody has done. And Jody's saying, Lauren, if they help you, you'll gladly trade that temporary discomfort for the quality of life it'll help you maintain. Absolutely. Great stuff, guys. By the way, you remember that I said that I went out shopping for some better food this week. I'm already beginning to see it affect my blood glucose. I had days, a week of having my morning blood glucose in the 7s and up. 7s, hang on a second, what's that in American? 100, I have to have the conversion thing, otherwise I can't do it. I speak Canadian. Yeah, it's been over 126 for over a week, my overnight one. Now, my overnight one has always been higher. It's just an anomaly, but, it certainly hasn't been higher than 7, but I've had a week of that. And I decided the reason is I must be eating the wrong foods. And so I went out to go and get some healthy food. And I'm delighted to tell you that today my morning blood sugar was down to 6.2, which was 111 in American. And so that was like change of food, change of result. And so again, think about that. Complaining about it wasn't going to bring down my blood sugar. Action changed it. Not feeling sorry for myself, right? It's not feeling sorry for myself that's going to change my blood glucose level. It is taking the right action. And so I am looking forward to continue. And does that mean I didn't have any bad food? Of course not. It's me. I had Halloween candy. I had Halloween candy twice a day yesterday. Oh. All right. Not just once, twice. I had some Halloween candy after dinner, and I had some more just before I went to bed. I have proof. I'm trying to remember what Halloween candy I had after dinner, but I know before I went to bed, I had 3 little packets like this. But I reckon because these were real fruit gummies, that they probably would be less dangerous than the other one. Oh, the other ones were like little mini crunchy bars. I had 3 of those after dinner. And then I had 3 of those little real fruit gummies before I went to bed, and a bottle of water. You see, I'm learning that. Yeah. And then I made sure I had extra meat protein and I think a boiled egg before I went to bed. Right. So the last thing I had was extra water and protein before I went to sleep. And I was fine. Well, fine. I'm still working to get it down. So when you look at it, we realize that we all deal with stress every day. And my wish for you is to realize that how we deal with it is as important as having it. Make sense? How we deal with our stress. And to me, it's an attitude. So I've got a couple of smiley things for you, just so as we finish up this broadcast, which made me smile, but it's all about stress stuff. And it says, Emma Bombeck said, when your mother asks, do you want a piece of advice? It's a mere formality. It doesn't matter whether you answer yes or no, you're going to get it anyway. I'm guilty of that. And we always love to get quotes from Stephen Wright because he really is so funny. But he said, if somebody asked me, if you were stranded on a desert island, what book would I bring? Oh, by the way, before I give you his answer, which book, if you were stranded on a desert island, which book would you take with you? Let's see what people reply to that. And while we're waiting for you to answer that, I'm going to just carry on with the next quote, and I'll come back to the answer in a second. Albert Einstein said the difference between stupidity and genius is that genius has its limits. Lauren's saying if she was stranded on a desert island, she'd take her Bible with her. Right. Stephen Wright, Lauren, said if he was stranded on a desert island, the book he'd take with him is How to Build a Boat. I don't know why I found that so amusing. How about this one? Cullen Hightower said, laughing at our mistakes can lengthen our own life. Laughing at somebody else's can shorten it. And again, this is a bit like that Betty White quote. It said, a stockbroker urged me to buy a stock that would triple in its value every year. I told him at my age, I don't even buy green bananas. Dave Barry said, my therapist told me the way to achieve true inner peace is to finish what I start. So far, I've finished 2 bags of M&Ms and a chocolate cake, and I feel so much better already. Definitely have my name on it. Okay, now there's some of you will relate to this. Life begins at 40, but so do fallen arches, rheumatism, faulty eyesight, and the tendency to tell a story to the same person 3 or 4 times. And Doug Larson said, never, ever doubt the courage of the French. They were the ones who discovered that snails are edible. You're going to be pretty desperate to try that experiment, right? And Stephen Hawking, not known for his humor, said, I've noticed that even people who claim everything is predetermined and that we can do nothing to change it, look before they cross the road. True. How about Roy Orbison? He said, pretty boom. Roy Orbison said, I may be a living legend, but that sure doesn't help me when I have to change a flat tire. I love that story. Funny enough, it always reminds me of that story about the woman who broke down and this was back in the 50s, I think, and she was down in the south of the US, and she was a Black woman. And she said that she broke down and this incredible white guy stopped to help her. And in those days, that was not normal. And she was busy explaining that she was on her way to a very important event. And so he stopped and he helped to change the tire and she said, please let me have your details because I would like to be able to just send you a card of thanks. And the most amazing thing was a few days later, a big truck arrived with a completely, somehow they'd been talking about music. And anyway, a new truck arrived and out of the truck came this big box. And the guy said, what is this? And he said, this is for you. And he said, I didn't order anything. He said, no, this is from the lady you helped the other night. And he said, what? He said, the lady that you helped the other night, I believe you changed her tire. And he said, yes. And he said, she sent you this. And it was a complete Bose Wi-Fi system. What do you call it? In those days, we didn't have Wi-Fi. Recording system, boombox type thing, a complete system. And he said, Michael, why would she send me that? And he said, what you didn't know was the lady you helped was Mrs. Nat King Cole. She was on her way to watch her husband receive an award, and you helped her. And so I always think that that's a great story about you never know who you're helping. All right, so here we go. Sam Ewing said, inflation is when you pay $15 for a $10 haircut you used to get for $5 when you had hair. That's true. And how many of you, I love discussing this with why the women's haircuts always cost more than men's. It's just like, it is mad, isn't it? And Jay Leno said, there's something to think about here. How come you never read the headline, Psychic Wins Lottery? Now, I can tell you that once in my life, I was discussing the ability we all have to see into the future. And somebody said to me, oh, if you can see into the future, what's going to win the Grand National? It must have been in the days when I was still in England. And I said, what? And they said, what's going to win the Grand National? And I said, okay, I'll play the game. And I literally went inside my head and I thought about it. And I said, I don't know the horse's name, but it is number 6. And then I said, or it is in gate number 6, because I could see the number 6. And so they said, oh, really? And I said, yeah. Anyway, then I left it. This person believed me enough that they went and put money on both number 6 and the horse that was drawn into number 6. How did they know that? Anyway, what happened is they both came in. They came in 1 and 2. And the person that said, why aren't you worth a fortune? I said, because I choose not to use that part of my brain for that sort of thing. Jared Kent said, from the ages of 8 to 18, me and my family moved around a lot. Mostly we would just stretch, but occasionally one of us would actually get up and go to the fridge. Oh, Bernice is saying about the haircut story. She's saying that's why I only get my hair cut once a year. And by the way, that's why I learned to cut my own hair. For that reason. Calvin Coolidge said, I have never been hurt by what I have not said. How many of you have said things in anger and then wish you'd never said them? I must admit, I am at this great age a lot better about feeling those things come into my mind, and I'm going, I need to stop now, because any minute now I'm going to say something I will regret. And the other person said, well, just say it then. I go, no, I'm sorry. I used to do that. But I know that when I go back on this conversation 24 hours from now, I do not want to remember saying things I regret. And therefore, I'm walking away from this conversation. And Jody, from what I gather, you're doing a really great job of that with your sister-in-law. And I want to tell you that I'm very, very proud of you for being able to now not respond with anger and just let her judge the way she wants to judge and not be bent out of shape by it. Or even though you are bent out of shape on it, do not respond accordingly. Knowing that your behavior is your responsibility. She doesn't make you do anything. How you respond is your responsibility. And I just love the stories that you've been telling to show your control on that. Well done. Graham Norton said it's a really good rule to remember for life that when it comes to plastic surgery and sushi, never be attracted to a bargain. And Betty White again, she said about Facebook again, Facebook sounds like a drag. In my day, seeing pictures of people's vacations was considered punishment. I can remember that. Oh my gosh, we're going to have to see pictures of their latest vacation. And Bill Murray said the best way you can teach your kids about taxes is eat 1/3 of their ice cream. And explain, let me show you how this works. You see, that's how much money you're going to earn. And this is how much the government is going to take. And Jody's saying, I'm in a place in my life that I greatly respect peace and quiet. I have no interest in engaging in drama. And Jody, that is a conscious decision. Am I right? You can see it now as it starts as people start manipulating you and start causing drama, that you can realize that you can control your side of it. And by the way, they get really angry when you don't participate, don't they? Again, it's like, it takes two people to be in a big drama. If one of them refuses to be part of the drama, it's amazing how the other one gets even more. The other person gets even more insistent. They keep doing stuff to try and get you to participate. But if you stand solid and go, I'm not going to participate in this, eventually they get fed up. And then they'll have another snipe at you and they go away. And then you go, I did it. I kept control. Bernice is saying, we need that visual at school because sometimes people don't understand that here. Sometimes people don't understand that here. And they keep voting for taxes without realizing it. And they wonder why the paycheck is so small. Yeah, I want to tell you though, I can remember, I don't know if any of you can understand what I'm about to tell you. I had a contractor come to me one day, and he gave me a quote. And he said, mind you, if we do this under the table, and I don't have to pay taxes on it, then I could do it for this amount of money. And I said, why would I do that? You see, the taxes I pay to you and everybody else pays for my roads and the policing and everything else. Why would I even consider not paying tax? And to me, it was like every time somebody does something under the table, it means that the government is not receiving the money it needs to do the work that it needs to do. I don't know whether I'm the only one that finds that offensive. And I'd be interested in your feedback on that. Kerry Underwood said it occurred to me that the majority of my diet is made up of foods that my kid didn't finish. If you've ever had children, you will know about what she speaks. I think that's so clever. Tom Clancy, the author, said, the difference between fiction and reality? Fiction has to make sense. Okay, so Bernice is saying, don't get me wrong, I agree to pay taxes. But here in Washington, they're having taxes more on other stuff like sodas and a train we don't even have access to. Well, yeah, we have taxes on taxes in Canada. We have federal taxes and local taxes and everything else. But to me, it is what it is. If I don't pay taxes, I don't get the benefits from them either. And I want to tell you that I willingly pay, my taxes. Now, I say willingly. I obviously don't try not to pay more than I have to. But I think that I understand the need for taxes. And do I think that I shouldn't pay for the bridge that's going to be built because I never use that road? No, I think it's part of what we do as a society. I thought this was a really nice quote. It's from Abraham Lincoln. And he said, tact is the ability to describe others as they see themselves. Right? We were talking about being civil. I must admit that I found it really interesting to say to people, you look like a really nice person. And to watch them just change as they say that, because there are not many people that are going to argue with that. Or when somebody needs to trust me on something, I will ask them, do I look like a trustworthy person? And they say, do I have reason not to trust you? I said, not yet. Bernice is saying, I agree. I do not like under the table because they make mistakes and stuff they may or may not do on a good job. Yeah. Because there was no contract. I quite agree. And, sometimes it pays you to go pay way more and get less trouble than it does to get it on the cheap and not have any recourse. Jody's saying, when I moved to a state that didn't charge the state tax, I kept asking the sales associate if they had forgotten to add it in. It took me a time to get used to it. I didn't know that New Hampshire doesn't have sales tax. I remember when I first went to Africa, The first paycheck I got, I went back and did the same thing, Jody, and I said, I think you've forgotten to take taxes. And they said, no, no, I lied. When I moved to Canada, I think I took the first paycheck back and said, I think you've forgotten to take taxes. And they said, no, we took it. And it was just that they took far less than they did in Africa. All right, so Bernice is saying here she's in Washington State, the taxes are already higher than any other state, and they want more taxes for a project worth smaller. But they put more money in for the same price, but they pay higher. I'm not quite sure what the end of that is all about, but one thing I do know, that a quote for a project is never the cost of what it's going to be, Bernice, just so you know. All right, there will always be the real costs. One is the quote that we think it's going to cost, the other is the real costs. So, you can have a bridge that's going to cost, 10 million to build, but in the quote, but by the time they actually have the overages and the real overtime that it took and the real this and the real that, it ends up costing 15 or 20. That is life. And, with all due respect, anybody who's ever done business in that sort of way, it's not that people are cheating. It's just the real costs cannot ever be perfectly quoted. And, it's not nice, but it's reality. How about this one? I thought this was a cute one, and we'll stop on this one. Unfortunately, I don't know who said it, but it's still worth quoting. It said, I love airports because the rules of society do not apply. You can eat pizza and have a glass of wine at 7 a.m. while wearing track pants. Nobody cares. And I'd like to say that sometimes we just need to live the way we would like to. All right? Sometimes the way to get rid of the stress is to control it. And that's what I am doing. I just want to let you know that today I went to see the 2-bedroom apartment, the one that I've been talking about, possibly moving into this week. And here's the interesting thing. When I looked at the 2-bedroom apartment today, yes, it was that much bigger. But it was also surprisingly that much darker than the apartment I'm in at the moment. And this, where I'm sitting now, I face north. And it is just has quite a bit of light. The other place faces east, which means you only get light really in the morning. And so I was shocked that here it was that much bigger. And although it was a corner unit, which will make you think I've got a lot more window, what they had done is they put a bedroom on the corner and then a living room, same situation as mine, and then another bedroom. So you got none of the advantage of being on a corner. It wasn't that your living room wrapped around with windows on both sides. The bedroom did. Well, hello, I don't know about you. I don't spend my day in the bedroom. I spend my day in the living room. And so I looked at it. And by the way, one of the big features was that it had a freezer with filtered water and ice. But I found out they disconnected it, the water line to it, because of some other technical reason. And I said, okay, that's another reason why I was going to come here. So that's not more light, less light. The freezer no longer is an advantage. They'll get running water, cold water, and ice. And obviously the kitchen was even bigger, but do I need an even bigger kitchen? Not really. And so I said, you know something? For all the stress it's going to cause me to move again, I don't see enough advantages. I've got quite settled in the place that I'm in, and it's obviously big enough for me. I'm not uncomfortable in it. And I'm going to stay where I am. So do you understand that the one thing that everybody was concerned about, and was because the possible problem I would have because of my arthritis in the hip, was getting in and out of the bathtub. And so what I will now do this week is to go out and buy one of those grab bars that you can put over the side of a bathtub, so that I will have that much more safety getting in and out of the bathtub. And quite honestly, touching wood, I have not I have not had problems getting in and out of the bathtub. My hip's been fine. And I think it's because I've been doing a lot of stairs and using my hip a lot more that it is, doing well. So think about this. I was all ready to take on the extra stress to move. But when I actually saw the place, I went, there is not enough stuff that's better that makes me want to go through another move. But you know me, I'm a be prepared, not scared person. So I had already started packing things up, ready to move, because I was so certain I would want to move. And I was wrong. So now I'm going to unpack the things that I'd already packed up. But there's no rush on that either. Mostly it was groceries. And now I'm going to settle into the place that I've got and be here for as long as it takes. Yeah, and so Jeannie's saying that's a good choice considering what you found, right? And to me, light, I think you've heard me say this time and time again, the reason I bought the house that I did was the amount of light in it. And that it was, bright and so forth, and had a nice feeling. I like the layout of this. I don't have 2 bedrooms. I've got 1 bedroom, but plus a little den area. But if I had a guest, I have got a pull-out couch. And it would mean sharing a bathroom, but what are the chances of my having a guest? Pretty slim. So, it doesn't even worry me. And it would have to be somebody I really knew well to have them stay over. And if I had to share a bathroom, I could. So this is DearMamaSal saying, think about your week and think about your stress levels. And every decision you make, think about, is it worth the cost of stress that I could be buying with this? When I say buying, do you understand that was my whole issue? Was it worth all the stress of moving? Would I be getting enough benefit? And the answer was no. Therefore, I'm happy where I am. I know all the routine of being where I am. This is DearMamaSal saying, the amount of stress we give ourselves is within our control. We've got enough stress that we cannot control. Make sure that you make the right decisions for the stress that you can. All right, everybody, have a super week. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being here. And we'll see you soon. This is DearMamaSal saying bye for now.